Women's health is very important, and in fact, conditions surrounding women's health often go unlooked, unexamined, and for those of us who suffer with certain conditions, we tend to suffer in silence. On this Positive Profiles, I'm chatting with Katrina Alleyne, the founder of the Endometriosis and Women's Wellness Association. Katrina, thank you for being with us here on Positive Profiles.
Good morning.
Good to have you.
Good to be here.
Tell me a little bit about how it all started, the Endometriosis Association.
Well, in 2012, I was diagnosed with endometriosis after waiting for a diagnosis for 16 years, having bad menstrual cycle from the age of 13. Going to the doctor after doctor. Obviously, endometriosis is not something that you can see with the ultrasound. Mm-hmm. So all the ultrasounds came back normal. It's only after I was diagnosed with 2 ruptured ovarian cysts and admitted to the hospital that when I went back for my 6-week review that I could not walk or anything, and I had to get prepped for emergency surgery. And that was when I found out that I had endometriosis.
What a way to get that information. Now, that in itself is traumatic. Let us move past to recovery and how you were able to process all of that in creating then the association.
Well, for me, I went from pain to purpose based on my personal experience and also the outcries of women that I would have met through the recent admissions into hospital, because at that time I just thought that I was the only person in Barbados with endometriosis, since it was not a condition that was widely spread or talked about. So after interacting with women on my frequent admissions, I spoke to the gynecologist and I said to him, there's not an association in Barbados for endometriosis, and the impact, not just physically, but emotionally, and the mental impact of dealing with the condition. There were no support system or no avenues to get information to educate yourself on what the condition really was, because the medical definition for endometriosis is the lining that normally lines the inside of the uterus, goes outside of the uterus, so it can be any part of the body. But that is the medical definition. But to really have endometriosis, for me, the definition does not cover what endometriosis really is in reality.
Because the experiences are more far-reaching than just the biological or clinical explanation.
Yes.
What are some of the experiences someone might go through having endometriosis?
They're always in pain, really bad periods. Sometimes you have periods where you just blacked out because the pain is that bad. You have a lot of transfusion because you lose so many blood sometimes on the menstrual cycle. You have issues with the sciatic nerve, so sometimes when you have a flare, you could be walking and you just fall down because the leg give up from the pain. You can also have thoracic endometriosis, where that is in the cavity in the diaphragm. So sometimes when you have an endometriosis flare, you can actually have a lot of complications with breathing and stuff like that. You can also be coughing up blood and stuff too as well on your menstrual cycle based on the endometriosis and where the deposits are.
Now that is a lot to take in. There's a lot to take in. Obviously, you've gone through this for many years. Do you have a hand on it now?
For me, I think that over time you get accustomed, because your tolerance for pain gets more, you get more in tune with your body and stuff like that, so you know when it is time to head to the hospital, when it's time to head to the doctor, or what you can manage. But to be honest, I went through so much different avenues, so much different medications, so much different procedures, just to get that relief. So for me, it all comes down to the individual and how the individual copes mentally, because at the end of the day, it starts with your mind. So instead of feeling sorry for yourself, you gotta say, you know what, let me suck it up, this is what it is, and make the most of it, because it affects your life on a really different level than most people.
You could have easily said, Katrina, you go suck it up and you're gonna keep going, and that would be your personal journey. Mm-hmm. What made you feel it was your duty to not only educate others, but help them along their journey as well?
For me, my support system in regards to the pain and stuff like that, I grew up with my granny. I was a granny's girl. So I grew up with the taboo of the information that if you don't have bad pain with menstrual cycle, that you're not having a period. So for me, it was okay to always have bad pain, but the pain that I was experiencing, I know something was wrong because it wasn't normal, because my functionality just went dormant. It could not function, you know? So for me, it's like when you get to that stage in life where you understand that people need support, because a lot of people don't have a support system, and sometimes I up all hours of the night because the pain is so bad for some people they start to think about suicide and stuff like that because they just want to be out of the pain. So I know that I needed to do something, and honestly I think that it has been the best decision that I would have made in my life in 2016.
Let's look at your outreach. How many lives have you touched in terms of being able to help other women who are also suffering?
Honestly, the number is so vast that I cannot even begin to count how many women, because I do so many counseling every day with so much different women, and not just women but girls as well, you know. And for me, it's having that safe haven, because people tend to gravitate or feel open talking to someone that would have experienced what it is, because for some person that don't know what endometriosis is or what it entails, sometimes they don't grasp the concept of what it really is, because they say, oh, you look good, you look well, because it's not a visible disease. So it's not like you're going to cast everybody, you know, your hand broken, you know, because the visibility is there that the cast is on. But with endometriosis, because it's so invisible, and you tend to pretend being well more than you are being sick, people tend to think that, you know, sometimes when they see you that you're faking and stuff like that. And because I could be here talking to you now, and the next 2 hours I could end up in hospital because the pain is that bad and you don't have an indication to say, oh, a flare is coming on. No, it just happens, you know. So it's like you have to adapt, you have to know your body, but at the same time you have to understand the level of pain that you can tolerate as an individual, because what might work for you will not work for me. So I think we need to get away from the notion that it's just a bad period and that the pain can be that bad.
So we can't be dismissive about it.
No.
If there was advice that you'd want to give to persons out there who are not experiencing endometriosis, but they've had relatives or friends who present these kind of symptoms, what kind of advice would you share with them?
For me, I would say that get in the know, get educated, and be that support system, because sometimes you may be the only support system that that person has, you know. And to understand, obviously you cannot understand the level of pain that this person may be feeling, but at the same time you can be empathetic, you know, and lend a helping hand, because at the end of the day, we don't get to pick and choose which illness we choose to have as individuals, you know, and sickness don't pick and choose. So I think that we need to be more open-minded, get educated, and also put yourself in that position to understand that it's not just a bad period. And once you get that mindset and notion that it's not a bad period, it's not just a bad period, then your outlook and your perspective will be different towards persons with gynecological issues.
You've touched so many lives that you can't count. But what about the challenges that you find persons come to you with? Because as you said, my pain and your pain might be two different things, and the experiences surrounding it might be vast. So what are some of the challenges persons usually present themselves to you with?
Well, I would say in regards to challenges, the support is one. The financial burden is another thing too, because a lot of women with gynecological issues sometimes cannot work because of the functionality and how it affects them personally. So sometimes to even have the access to medical care privately, or if you have to get a particular medication that is not on the formula, is a cost. And to me, that is something that is take persons into a lot of depression.
I can relate.
Because there's a GnRH, for example, injection that they use for as a chemotherapy injection. They use it for breast cancer and prostate cancer. But women with severe endometriosis has to use it, and that runs for 6 months. So imagine you're not working, you're not on the outpatient list at the hospital. You have to look for $400 a month, each month, to get that medication.
Wow.
So that's a burden there on itself, you know. And other challenges is that I was advocating for menstrual leave because there are persons that have to have a week, between 3 days to a week home every month for the menstrual cycle. And I know how that goes because I had that experience personally. And at the end of the day, you have challenges with the employers because you're always out. And then a lot of persons also lose their jobs due to being always out because of how the endometriosis or any gynecological condition, for a matter of fact, affects them.
Endometriosis is a condition in which cells similar to the lining of the uterus or endometrium grow outside the uterus. Endometriosis often involves the pelvic tissue and can envelop the ovaries and fallopian tubes. It can affect nearby organs, including the bowel and bladder. So, during a menstrual cycle or period, this tissue responds to hormones, and due to its location, frequently results in pain. Endometriosis causes surrounding tissues to become irritated and potentially develop scars and sticky fibers that bind tissues together. In some cases, endometriosis can cause cysts on the ovaries. These are called endometriomas. Fortunately, there are effective treatments to manage and treat endometriosis.
Wow. Now, we want to see if we can get an opportunity to home in on that in terms of wrapping up what the fund and the association has been doing for persons, especially persons who've had those challenges.
Well, so far we would have started our Endo Drive project where it goes towards persons in the marginalized community, which we highlight period poverty. So what happens is every month we provide all the necessities for these persons, which is the sanitary napkins, whatever they need. We provide those. We also have the psychologist attached to the association for persons who may be experiencing the mental impact of the condition. So we have that option there where they can actually have the sessions and stuff as well. We have our gynecological doctors as well. So based on what they say to me, then I can direct them to see which doctor is more feasible for that person, So outside of that, the education process as well has been tremendous because we not only just want to focus on women that already have the condition, but we started going into the schools and stuff like that, educating persons about what is menstruation, what to expect, what is normal, what is not normal. And then we also looked at the gynecological conditions because at the end of the day, early detection or proactive measures can save a lot of girls from going into the sufferation that we would have experienced in our times leading up to the diagnosis and stuff with endometriosis.
Katrina, what gives you your greatest joy within the association?
I think for me, the greatest joy is to see that I can be of assistance to these individuals. One, two, I can be the support system at any time of the day or any time of the night. And three, what gives me the most joy is to actually see that what I came from in 2016 to where I'm at now, so it's a whole different ball game, and the outlook and my perception going forward, is a whole lot broader than just dealing with gynecological issues or just dealing with women, but actually having a safe haven or hub where women can not only just focus on rebuilding or refocusing on health, but also making a better life for themselves despite of what they're experiencing as an individual, because it's still possible.
And that is encouraging. I like the fact that you keep that encouragement alive.
Yeah.
You are certainly a light for all women out there, not only those who suffer with endometriosis, but all women as well. I want to thank you for sharing some time with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been watching Positive Profiles. Ladies, you heard it right here. Anytime you experience or have a friend who's been experiencing challenges in their menstrual cycle, don't forget the Katrina Endometriosis and Women's Health Association. They're not only here as support, but they're here to be your champion. You've been watching Positive Profiles. I'm Kimberly Skeet.